right, today I'm going to tell you guys a story about something that happened to me when I was a little girl. It's a true story. I was about almost 4 years old. Yes, 4 is a great age. And we went to visit my grandparents at their house, and my aunt and uncle and my cousins came to visit too. My cousins were a little older than me. They were about 8 and 9, 2 girls. And one day we decided to all go out to eat at a restaurant. And my cousins wanted to ride with my grandparents, and my grandparents had a station wagon. How many of you know what a station wagon is? It's kind of an older car. There's still a few around. A station wagon's kind of like a regular car, but it had a really big back that was for storage. And a lot of people used it for storage, but sometimes, many years ago, kids would ride back there, and there were no seat belts, and there were no car seats, which is why we don't do that today. But my cousins were going to ride with my grandparents in the station wagon in the back, and they asked me if I wanted to ride with them in the back. And I said, of course I do. It sounds like so much fun to be in the back hanging out with them while my parents and my grandparents drove to the restaurant. So I ran back to my parents and I said, please, 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 can I ride with my cousins in the back of the station wagon? And my parents said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And I said, please, pretty please, can I ride with them? And my parents said, no, it is not safe. You need to ride in the back seat with a seatbelt in the car with us. Oh, I was so upset. I was crying. And I went to my cousins and I said, my parents won't let me ride in the back with you. And they said, you know what, since you can't ride with us, we're just gonna sit in our seats too and be in our seatbelts. So that made me feel a little bit better, but not much. I was so angry at my parents. It was so unfair, and I was sure they just didn't want me to have any fun at all. I crossed my arms over my chest, and I was pouting, and I wouldn't speak to them at all the whole way we were in the car. So my grandparents' station wagon was a couple cars ahead of us as we were driving to the restaurant, and they stopped for a stoplight. Well, the car that was directly behind them wasn't paying attention. The driver was fiddling with the radio and didn't see that there was a stoplight ahead of him, so he was driving really fast and he slammed into the back of my grandparents' car. And we were right behind them, so we saw the accident happen, and we got out of the car right away, and we ran over to the station wagon, and my cousins were crying, and we got them out of the car, but you know what? We felt all their bones, and they were okay, and my grandparents were okay. And we waited for the police to come. And the police came to the accident, and they did an investigation, and then they got my family together, and they said, you know what? That car was going so fast, and the back of the station wagon is so smashed up that any kids that were playing back there would have been killed immediately. And I still remember that very clearly, and my parents still remember it very clearly. Because you know what? Sometimes we may think that our parents' rules are unfair. Sometimes we might think they just make those rules so we can't have any fun. And sometimes we don't understand why our parents make those rules, but they make them to keep us safe. And you know what? God is the same way. Sometimes we may not understand why we have to follow all the rules that are in the Bible. It may not always make sense to us, but you know what? God has a big plan for us, and he wants to keep us safe and healthy and happy. And that's why he has those rules and guidelines for us. So we need to remember to trust and obey our parents and Jesus. All right, thank you guys for listening to this story. Don't forget to get your crayons up front, and you can go back and sit with your parents.